My name's Warren Beal. I'm the Reverend Warren Beal, a deacon in the Anglican Church, working out of the Christ Memorial Church in Oshawa. I've been a chaplain now for 25 years. I was a volunteer at the Psych for 15 years prior to that. The role of a deacon is to, well, in the case of, from what a number of the bishops have actually said, is the ministry that hits where the rubber hits the road. And there was quite a few bishops, including Linda Nichols, that say that as well. I go in the community, I minister in the community, and I bring the cares and concerns of the community back to the parish. And they can either take action or find someone who can. And basically, I'm the bridge between the community and the church. One day I was at St. George's Pickering Village, and for some reason it just blurted out of my mouth to Grant Swartz. I says, do you need any help at the hospital? He says, sure, be there next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And that's when it started, 1981. As far as a chaplain goes, 90% of being a chaplain in a hospital is just showing up. The presence is there. Prayer is, and if they want it, is a plus. Sometimes it's difficult because the family isn't religious in some cases, and I've actually done the final prayers for a patient that was in ICU in a waiting room, not even close to the ICU, because the family was so anti-Christian, but the one person, the daughter, was Christian, and she wanted those prayers said. So I had to say them in absentia, basically, in another room. The tag of Anglican when you walk into the hospital is left at the door. You're ministering to everybody there. Anybody who needs it, you give them whatever you can. Trying to cope with in the severe cases, you have a sense of numbness when you leave the hospital because you're not used to seeing this much. Well, not blood and gore so much, but yes, it's there. But the number of people dying, incredible. I probably dealt with more than maybe 400 or 500 deaths over my career as a deacon, and some of them are much worse than others, and some of them are expected deaths, and it's a little bit easier when they know the person's going to go. But I was in the emergency one time, and the family was in there, and it was my barber's brother that was on the table, and he was dead. And we saw the uncle sitting on a chair against the wall, a little bit away from us. And I looked at the nurse and says, "He hasn't moved in 5 minutes." And we looked at it. Sure enough, he coded it himself, but they brought him back quickly. But he had stopped breathing, his heart had stopped, and everything. But we just didn't even clue in until we saw him not moving for 5 minutes, and it was just kind of scary. But that happens. The pandemic has shut down most of the visiting in the hospital. I used to be the chaplain for the orthopedic floor, and I would take care of that. I visit anywhere between 10 to 20 patients on that floor on a regular basis, on a couple days a week, and that's not happening anymore. You're not allowed to go from one room to the other. I have been called in on 2 emergencies. Okay, one was the one parishioner, and it wasn't a matter of being called by the hospital. The family told the emergency department, "We want this person to come in." It's the only person they want. When they called for me to come in, and I've never come into a hospital that fast in my life. They just ushered me right to where she was. No questions asked. They saw the tag they saw my identification tag and says, "That's the person we want in there." So I made it in there right away, and she lasted about 10 minutes from the time I got there until the time she passed away. And that can be hard too, because you're closer to the person than you would be for a normal, like I walk into a case, I don't know who the person is. It can be much harder than, just almost like having a family member pass away in front of you. Let's talk about something that happened on the 6th floor one time. Okay, the nurse went to get a Demerol or whatever to put this patient to sleep. She's in a lot of pain. Okay, I went to her, I prayed for her. And the nurse came in with the Demerol and says, "What did you do to her?" I says, "I prayed for her. She was sound asleep and quite comfortable." And the nurse says, "Okay, I think I know what happened." It was kind of one thing. She had this big smile on her face, and this is the patient. They had a big smile on her face, and she just closed her eyes and went to sleep. It was something that you think, yeah, somebody's watching over this girl. I'm the conduit. I'm praying for her, and And God granted her a little bit of peace and quiet for a while.
Beautiful.
You know, she was post-operative and she was in pain.
Yeah.
And the nurse looked at me and says, "What did you do?" And I says, "All I did was pray for her." He says, "Okay." He accepted that and went away with her, put her Demerol away.
That's lovely.
You know. Then you don't see that too often in the hospital. It's almost always something is wrong and it requires a lot of prayer. But it's always good to have something to lighten your spirits up a bit.
Yes.
I think right now we need a second deacon to work in the community as a whole. I went down through Ritson at Bloor Street the other day, and there's this one kid. He couldn't have been much more than 20 years old, lying on the grass sleeping. He was either on drugs or he was recovering from a hangover. I'm not sure which, but I'm sure the police came eventually and took him away. But I see that if you go up the street on Simcoe Street at 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever, you can see them coming up from where they were sleeping that night. And I would say that I saw a couple dozen a few times. You know, it's kind of sad to know that many people are homeless in the city. I'm sure they're probably talking about maybe 200 people in the city are homeless. It's, you know, something that, you know, we have the resources, and the mayor was it Dan Carter. His main objective is to get the people housing that'll be sustainable. And, you know, living outside in the wintertime, no, it's not acceptable. As far as being a chaplain, that's my calling, and I continue to do it. Yeah, it's going to be hard at times. I can't say it's all easy, but you learn to deal with it, and you know when you ask for help when you need it. I'd like to thank the parishioners for being behind me, you know, for the last 20 years as a deacon, and before that as a lay reader. And hopefully it'll be another few years before I retire, because, you know, it's health-wise, things have changed a bit. I'm getting older. But even then, I still feel okay to go to the hospital anytime I'm called and do what I have to do. Once you get the support behind you, it's very easy to continue working. It's a calling. It's not just something you just decide you're going to do. It's a calling from God that this is what you're going to be doing.